Welcome back, everybody. If you haven't guessed it already, this is part 3 of our Ultimate Tiermaker Challenge. And if you guys have followed it to this point, then you guys are the real MVPs, and I thank you for it. We're starting to get some really great discussion forming on some of these videos, so I definitely appreciate your input, opinions, facts, or whatnot. I love hearing from you guys. Unlike the last video, there's no need for an extended forward or some corrective messages at the front. We're going to dive right in. But before we do, I just want to say, if you like these videos and you would like to see something more like this, please don't forget to click the like, notification bell, subscribe, and share. If this is not your thing, but you know someone who would really love something like this, don't forget to share it to your friends as well. And let's dive right in. Alright, let's start off the video with a quick recap of where we left off last time. The last band to make the chart is Saxon with a well-deserved and well-earned A-tier ranking. So let's get to the first band of the day, and that is a Greek band, Septic Flesh. These guys are a blackened death metal band from Greece. They've been around and doing things since 1990. They're easily considered one of death metal's most consistent bands, providing continuously respected and decent material. As far as global influence and significance outside of that death metal subculture, you really don't hear about them that much. I feel like their significance is only limited in certain circles. I don't feel like they got enough support to reach as many people as they should have, especially for a long-term and consistent band. That doesn't mean they're bad. They just never really got the boost they needed to become more successful and more relevant, especially here in America. And for that reason, I'm giving them an F-tier rating. I'm not saying they're bad. They just didn't revolutionize the genre. They're just one of the stalwarts of blackened death metal. They're consistent and continuous, and the musical content is good. Are they amazing and revolutionary? No. Are they respected? Yes. Is their influence and availability limited? Also yes. Suffers from what I call locally significance. Alright, the next band is far from locally significant. These guys are Seven Dust. And these guys got their start right at the beginning of the nu metal movement. I think they came out around 1997. Widely regarded as one of the best bands in that genre. They were kind of what you would consider alternative metal. They were extremely huge. They released some very important releases during the 90s and into the 2000s. But as time goes on, it seems like their significance has faded by large. And I do believe they have disbanded as of 2022. That being said, their legacy is still outstanding. They're still incredibly popular today. As far as being influential and revolutionary, they really didn't have much in terms of that. But they were one of the biggest and most consistent bands of the time. And for that, they get a B-tier rating. There was just more bands out there at the time that revolutionized and pioneered more and reached, a higher level of significance. Nothing wrong with Seven Dust, but they just didn't quite have that push. Alright, Sepultura. This is an easy S. By far, it's by far Brazil's most significant and highly successful export musically. These guys paved the way for other Brazilian bands, regardless of style, like Angra. They did a lot for heavy metal. They created a more extreme form of thrash and groove. And these guys became extremely significant in the 90s. They're extremely significant today. They're one of the biggest titans of the heavy metal genre, regardless of, what type of metal you listen to. These guys are absolutely unavoidable. They're legendary. They released some of the most important albums of the 90s, including Roots, Bloody Roots, and Chaos AD. By most people, those are considered their magnum opuses. Highly influential. Hardcore and extreme metal would not be the same today without them. Regardless, if you're only a fan of the Cavalera era, or if you're a fan of the Derek era, or both, there seems to be kind of a divide when it comes to that. There's still people hollering for the reunion of the Cavaleras to rejoin Sepultura, but their legacy is outstanding. I feel like they contributed immensely to what metal music is in the 90s, and their impact is still very largely being felt today. So they get an easy S. Shadow of Intent, I do believe, is either a grindcore or deathcore band. I don't really know much about them, so I can't place them. So they're going straight into no context, guys. If you have anything you can give me on any of these bands, please do, because I would love to get all these guys out of no context and somewhere on this list. Skyfire is going to follow suit. I don't even know of them. I've never heard of them before this list. Slaughter to Prevail. Okay, these guys are a very successful, very popular extreme grindcore band, deathcore band from Russia. These guys are making huge waves. They're extremely relevant, extremely significant in just a short amount of time. The one thing I'd like to point out, completely unrelated to their ranking, though, is if you look at the guys in the band, outside of the singer, they need to give Ghost back their old masks. Because I don't know if you guys remember what the Nameless Ghouls looked like around the Meloria album with Papa 3. Those are almost identical to the masks they wore. Just something funny I wanted to point out. These guys need to return their masks. Anyhow, their impact on metal today has been significant. They're becoming very influential. They're going on massive tours around the world. You can't avoid them. Are they S tier? No, not yet. I don't think they've had enough time. I don't think they're that revolutionary in that short of a period of time. But they absolutely have ascended to an A tier ranking. Probably the biggest Russian band to date. That's a landmark in and of itself. Slayer. You guys know where this is going. That is an easy S tier. Can't argue. And I need to figure out what this says. I hate these logos sometimes. Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. What even is that? I'm going to put it in the zoo called No Context. Hopefully somebody can shed some light on this, because that's wild. Slipknot. Like it, love it, leave it. These guys innovated and revolutionized heavy metal in the late 90s, especially into the 2000s and into today. They're kind of like, I'm not saying they're on the same level, but if Metallica came out in the 2000s, it would kind of be like what they're doing. They are probably one of the most extreme and iconic bands of the new millennium. They far surpassed anything that new metal was. These guys are total legends. Me personally, I'm not a fan. I know, say what you will. But I cannot deny the impact that they've had. And in the modern era of music, I don't think there's any band that has done more for music in general, defying all genres, than Slipknot. From their appearance, stage performance, and their legacy in music, these guys have definitely earned their place. They're one of those bands, if something happens and one of the members farts, TMZ or Blabbermouth is going to tell you what it smells like and where they ate for lunch. Just saying. When your every move is being monitored like that, any sort of whispers of anything, we find out about it just as soon as it happens. That's how you know you've made it. And these guys are absolute top tier legends. They've inspired numerous bands. It doesn't matter what kind of music you listen to or what genre or subgenre of metal you listen to. These guys are reigning supreme, and honestly, no one can take them down. You got to respect it. Sodom. All right, remember last time when I mentioned something about the big four of German thrash? Well, this is another one of those bands. They're extremely significant, both culturally and influentially. These guys have also crossed over into some more of the death territory, considered one of the first bands to kind of mix thrash with death. The band leader, Tom Angel Ripper, is like a household name in the metal community. These guys are extreme. These guys are legendary. They have an incredible career and a lot of really available music. I'm surprised they are still as relevant as they are today. But these guys are absolute legends. Did they stack up in the aggression tier as far as creator is concerned? No. But they are right behind them. They're an absolute A. One of the undisputed legends of heavy metal. Soilwork. Okay. This was their significance is not consistent. I'll be the first person to say that. At the time you hear about them, when you hear about them, everything is revolutionary and big. You hear about that guitar player, Peter Witchers, being one of the most important guitarists in metal history. They released one particularly seminal metal album, Stamina the Drama. I heard all about that for at least a couple years after the release, about how revolutionary that album was and what it did for metal. They are important, but unfortunately, this is one of the bands that lack consistency. They've broken up, they've come back. I don't know if they're still active. And unfortunately, that impacts the range of influence. If they continued in the pattern they were in, they probably would be one of the reigning titans of metal. They are marginally significant today. I do feel like they did have an impact on heavy metal music, especially within the guitar playing community, especially within the death metal community. But overall, they just did not have an enduring legacy. And that's the sad thing, because these guys were revolutionary for the time. But consistency and availability just isn't there. So I'm going to give them a D tier rating because of just how underrated they are. And I feel like the biggest reason for them being underrated is because of the lack of consistency. That really will kill a band. Next band on the list is a Finnish power metal band, Sonata Arctica. There's really love and hate when it comes to this band. Are they probably one of the more prolific names in power metal? Yes. Did they revolutionize the genre? No. And I feel like consistency is also a thing within the band. Sometimes the fans love them, sometimes the fans hate them. It's just not a general sense of consistency in the material they put out. Honestly, as far as range of influence and availability, these guys were not nearly as significant in America as their counterparts. So I feel like Sonata Arctica is definitely deserving of a D tier. Now that being said, they are important to power metal. They have some very relevant releases, but as far as, range of influence, about the power they've had and the impact they had on other people, that has become limited, as well as the lack of consistency in their musical material and the opinions of the fans. That kind of kills them. So they're lukewarm at best, in my opinion. Are they legends of the genre? Yes, of course they are. But that being said, all the other bands in that tier just kind of squashed them. Spirit Box. This was a rather surprising bit of knowledge for me today. Now, before I go into making one of these videos, I want you to know that I do try to research a lot of the bands that I don't know, but it's just not possible for me to get all of these obscure bands, in my opinion. But I do try to be educated about things. And when it comes to Spirit Box, what I found out today was they've been around for a little bit longer than I thought. I didn't start hearing about these guys until probably towards the end of last year. That's how new they are to me. But apparently they've been making waves for about 2 years now. This is a Canadian band that fuses, a female-fronted Canadian band, that fuses heavy metal with alternative and indie influences, as well as hip-hop, rap, R&B kind of stuff. Now, are they revolutionary to the genre? No, but they are widely regarded as one of the absolute best metal bands to come out since the COVID pandemic. And honestly, the diversity of their sounds is one of their defining features and one of their best features, apparently. Critics and fans alike are both giving glowing reviews of them, saying that this is the direction metal needs to take. the variety of music that's on their albums is what metal needs at the moment. Uh, they're spearheading a whole revolution. These guys have come from nothing to ultimate titans in just about a year and a half to 2 years. For that reason and the legacy they have built in just that short time, they are an A tier. I don't think they've been around nearly long enough to be S tier. Again, they didn't revolutionize anything. They're just a very favorable and very different and very welcome crossover metal band that's making waves. I mean, they've got over 2 million listeners a month on Spotify. That's huge. Their social medias are massive too. Their presence around the globe just can't be denied. And they did that all within a couple years. That has to be noted. A tier, A++. Okay. Static X. I might get some hate for this, but I want to tell you what. These guys are an S. Simply because they did release one of the most important industrial nu metal releases during the either late 90s or early 2000s. That's the Wisconsin Death Trip. But that being said, these guys were extremely influential and popular during their time in that new wave of heavy metal movement in the 90s. But the biggest thing that makes them an S is their legacy. We all know Wayne Static died around 2014, I do believe, and that was a shock felt around the world. And since then, the fans have further continued to immortalize their legacy. The band just recently, I think, went on a anniversary tour for Wisconsin Death Trip. Of course, there's that conspiracy about Edsel Dope being Zero, which is the new front man that's very reminiscent of Wayne Static. And the thing about it the most is when you hear the fans talk, they're all united, basically. Whether they agree with, Zero or not. The one thing that's different about this band than a lot of others is the fact that the fans are the stewards of their legacy. What I mean by that is it doesn't matter if Zero is fronting the band or not. They just want them to take care of the legacy so they can continue to be important in the eyes of the world. Everybody that's out there talking about this genuinely cares about Static X's legacy and music to the point where it doesn't matter if Zero is the frontman or not. They want to know if it's Edsel Dope or not, so that way they can know the truth about the band they love. It's not so much political as it is please protect and carry on this legacy properly. And when everybody comes out like that, it adds to your relevance. It adds to your legend. And honestly, Static X cannot be an S. Cannot be anything other than an S. So, this is a very important band to the world. And the world is very much adamant about their legacy being continued. And if so, continued in the right way. There's not a lot of fighting. Not really. And that's also something that should be very significant. So, easy S tier for Static X. Can't do anything less than that, honestly. In all fairness. Okay, Stradivarius. I do like these guys. This is a Norwegian, I do believe, or Finnish or Norwegian power metal band. Incredible talent. They did a very different take on power metal. They reintroduced the importance of keyboards, kind of hearkening back to more of a rainbow type influence. And these guys have been very noteworthy since the beginning, especially since the introduction of the vocalist Timo Kultapelto. These guys have been on massive tours, released some incredible albums, some very seminal releases to the metal genre. Overall, did they revolutionize power metal? No. Are they one of the top tier bands, one of the most legendary and significant and prolific bands of the genre? Yes. They're still widely popular today. I do feel like, though, their significance here of late has declined, but their body of work, their legacy, it continues to live. I do believe these guys to be one of the most successful power metal bands, but are they on the same tier as Helloween? No. Are they on the same tier as Powerwolf, Sabaton, and Hammerfall? Also no. But their contributions are duly noted, and I do feel like they're deserving of a B tier rating. and a high B tier rating at that. I would say B++. These guys, while being massively significant and successful and influential, they just did not receive the same kind of reach and influence as those other bands that previously mentioned. Suffocation. All right. This is an old school New York death metal band. Apparently there was this wave, a sub-movement of death metal in the late 80s called the New York Wave of Death Metal. These guys were one of the pioneers of another genre. These were one of the first bands of that old school New York death metal movement that included the use of, and heavy use of, breakdowns. And it's largely noted that these guys helped pioneer and helped even create the grindcore movement. However, significance globally and relevance today is rather low. They seem to be kind of largely unsung, but since their contributions helped pioneer and create another very popular and very widely used form of metal music, i.e. grindcore, these guys are a C tier. I feel like consistency and availability as well as support was just not where it needed to be to get them to a more prolific place in the death metal movement. However, their contributions did define and help create a whole other genre. You can't knock that. You hear these guys' name in certain circles, but the circles are not very wide. Not anymore, at least. This band is totally the opposite. This is Suicide Silence. These guys are the titans and one of the creators of the deathcore, metalcore genre. You cannot avoid these guys when you even just look up that movement, or either one of those movements, really. They were along with Motionless in White and Whitechapel. Those guys were three of the biggest creators of that modern genre of music. You can't avoid these guys, regardless of who sings for them. These guys just revolutionized and helped revolutionize metal in a way that no one else was doing at the time. And they're still incredibly popular and relevant around the globe. Incredibly accessible and available. You can't knock their contributions to music. Symphony X. Now this one is a really tough one to chart. These guys are an American progressive / power metal band. These guys did release some very influential and important releases during the 90s and even into the 2000s. I do feel, though, the legacy of the band as a whole isn't as strong as two of their players, Russell Allen being an incredibly renowned vocalist in the metal community. You hear about him in various projects outside of Symphony X as well as within. And then you have Michael Romeo, who is noted widely as one of the best, most virtuosic guitarists in the metal community. You see his lessons floating around on the internet. One of the biggest unsung heroes of the metal genre, period. But he is widely regarded as a legend. I feel like the sum of their parts are a little more known than the actual band itself. That being said, they're still touring the U.S. They're still making music. They have a prolific and historic career. Global significance and availability, I think, is what kills these guys. They're very popular overseas, but I feel like, well, like a lot of other bands like them, their relevance in America has declined. And for that reason, I feel like they float between a B and a C tier. Because when you think about it, these guys are incredibly underrated. So I'm going to put them really with the same category as Angra. And they're a C tier. But I would consider them something of a C++, right at the top of the tier. They're consistent, they're respected, and they have contributed in music to a way that's unique. Gotta hand it to them. Alright, so the next band on the list is an easy S. Of course, when we're talking about nu metal, one of the most iconic, legendary, and massively influential bands of the time, and even now, these guys never lost significance, and that is System of a Down. You cannot, in all reality, give them anything less than an S. They were incredibly unique. They had an entirely different kind of sound. These guys just had a global impact that was not seen with a lot of the, or really any of the other bands in the tier of music that they performed in. Even now, the relevance of the band is a lot smaller than it was. The activity of the band is a lot uncertain. It's really uncertain, to be honest with you. They're here and they're not. That being said, undisputed, champions and legends of nu metal. A whole new category of metal was created with them. Tala. I've never heard of these guys before, so they're going straight into no context. As with the next band, Tesseract, I love the name. The logo could use some work in my opinion. You do hear about them, but I don't really know anything about them. This is another band that I really, really, really need help with. Okay, this next band is absolutely difficult to chart. You would think that as we've eliminated so many bands, this would be getting easier. Well, you're wrong. This is still as difficult as ever. Whoever created this list knew what they were doing. Testament is a thrash band that was, I think their first album came out in 1987. Again, post Big Four. These guys actually made quite a big difference in the 80s. They were probably one of the most prolific bands of the time. And in a lot of circles, you would hear a lot of the actual Big Four fans say, you know what, these guys belong in the Big Four. For a non-Big Four band, that is huge. This band really helped spawn and influence a lot of future generations of music and bands, musicians. Their influence on me, I learned a lot from both the guitar work of Eric Peterson and Alex Skolnick, one of the best guitar duos of the genre. That being said, the 90s were kind of a weird period, and these guys did not conform to a lot of what was commercially acceptable. So they did go kind of under the radar in the 90s. They did have some really great releases like, it was the album Low. There you go. The album Low is a cult classic, still widely regarded as a great piece of their work. Then you had The Gathering. And you hear people talk about Demonic, but Demonic was a really, really, really underground sort of release. And I don't know if you guys remember, but in the last video, I talked about a resurgence in old school metal bands between 2009 and 2014. Well, Testament is another one of the bands that profited from that movement and really kind of created a second career out of it. These guys are more relevant than they've ever been. They're culturally significant. And again, they're considered one of the Big Four. Even though they weren't part of the movement, these guys revolutionized thrash in a way that no other band really has done. They have some of the best fans and most passionate fans in the world. It doesn't matter, about lineup changes or anything like that. Chuck Billy is still as good as ever. I think he sounds better than ever, in my opinion. They've only gotten better with time, and that is generally the consensus from critics and fans alike. Massively influential and significant. Are they an A or are they an S? I feel like they did revolutionize the thrash genre. But I also have to compare them to the likes of Megadeth, Metallica, and Slayer. And they're also still not on that level, but they aren't far from it. So they are what I would consider A++. In my mind, in my heart, they're an S. More than an S. I really want to put them in S tier. And if you put them in S tier, I'm not going to be mad about it because I feel like they deserve it. Factually, I don't think it's accurate. So I'm going to put them at the top of the A tier. No one deserves an S more than them. But when it comes down to the actual numbers of it all, I don't think it's there. Sad but true. Alright, so when it comes down to one of the most easily recognizable and massively significant bands of the modern metal movement, it doesn't get really any bigger than the Black Dahlia Murder. These guys are a melodic death metal band from the United States. These guys have been massive for a long time. Probably easily some of the best guitar work within the death metal genre, especially of the current day. These guys are massively significant in the US and all over the world, massively influential. But when it comes down to it, these guys did not revolutionize or even reinvent the genre. They've just popularized it and mainstreamed it in a way that's incredibly unique, especially in this day and age. They're massively respected, one of the most consistent bands in the genre. So Black Dahlia Murder is an easy A. All right, the next one was a once popular band. I used to see these guys' logo on everyone's skateboard, notebook, backpack, in crossing. You know, just walking by people. This was probably one of the most common things I've seen. Now it is gone, like it disappeared almost overnight. This is the Dillinger Escape Plan. These guys were at the front of the hardcore movement at the end of the 90s. Their debut album is widely acclaimed as one of the most important metal records of all time. I've also heard that the Dillinger Escape Plan not only helped popularize and form the hardcore movement at the end of the 90s, the new hardcore movement rather, these guys also helped pioneer mathcore and a lot of the extreme forms of progressive metal. According to a lot of folks, a lot of their stuff is incredibly hard to play. That being said, they dissolved and almost disappeared overnight. They are back now with their original singer apparently, not the one that kind of made them popular. And the general review of this comeback is lukewarm at best. I do feel like when it comes down to it, availability and accessibility is a little slim. There is a lot, and I mean a lot, of inconsistency as far as their musical releases. Their legacy is not all together. So I feel like these guys are pretty much in the underrated category. But because they did contribute a lot at the time that further developed other forms of music, and because people are still talking about them today, I'm going to put them at a C, but I feel like they're at the low end of the tier. The only reason really why they got a C is because of how they revolutionized hardcore music and helped create the mathcore genre and the extreme forms of progressive heavy metal. They did do that, so I can't take away from them. But as far as total significance, globally and locally, as far as legacy, consistency, and availability, these guys really didn't have it. So they really don't deserve anything higher than a C. And honestly, if you put them in the D tier, I wouldn't complain either. Because overall, I feel like based on their work, that's where they belong. But they do have a significant impact on metal. Can't deny that. Alright, The Lion's Daughter. I've never really even heard of these guys before the list, so that's going straight into no context. As is The Obsessed. I've not heard of them before this list either. Therion. Now, I have heard of them, and they were really big at one point in time. They are a symphonic metal band out of Sweden. You either love them or you hate them. It is rumored that they helped create the symphonic metal movement. This band is actually a lot older than we think it is. They started in 1988. That being said, I just don't feel like... I feel like they fall victim to the local significance. Overseas, they're absolutely huge and massively influential. In America, it was either hit or miss with them, and they never really hammered down a consistent audience here. And because of that, availability, accessibility, legacy, do I think they invented the symphonic metal genre? No. People were doing it, before then. It may not have been as massively acceptable, but it was around. Did they help revolutionize that? I believe yes. But at the same point in time, they never got the full support they needed to be massively relevant. But because of what they did for metal, they deserve a D tier rating. Alright, Thy Art is Murder. This is Australian deathcore. Yes, I'm looking down here so that I can review kind of my research from earlier. Is an Australian deathcore band. These guys are fairly significant and mainstream Influential, it doesn't seem that way. They are popular. They seem to be one of the most consistent bands, consistently releasing what's regarded as generally respected and good music in the deathcore scene. Overall, these guys kind of land right in the middle, which gives them somewhat of a C tier rating. Yeah, these guys are just kind of what you would consider. Oh, that's a D tier. Oh, Lord. These guys are a C tier rating. They are popular. They are fairly significant, but as far as their impact, I feel like that's where they're lacking. They're just a really consistent band. Moderately influential, moderately significant. And that's not a bad thing. Okay, Tool. Let's face it. Nobody has revolutionized generally just prog metal and prog rock in the new millennium. Even since the 90s, these guys consistently release groundbreaking records. Their music has impacted, a massive audience. They're largely influential. Lateralists, 10,000 Fists, pretty much everything that they do and they put out just ascends to greatness without even trying. And also, this is another one of those bands, kind of like Periphery, where the sum of their parts is equally as significant as the whole of the band. Their legacy is untouchable. Everybody knows who Maynard James Keenan is, Adam Jones, and Danny Carey and Justin Chancellor. These guys are legendary individually, but together they are a force that cannot be stopped. These guys are the new Dream Theater in a way. Trypalium. Never heard of them, so they're going straight into no context. Okay. Trivium. This one is a real nail biter over here. Yikes. These guys are largely influential. They are massively significant around the globe. One of the most popular and significant heavy metal bands to date. They are a newer band. I think their first album came out in like 2004 or 2003. They took classic elements of metal together with emo and metalcore and hardcore music and progressive, and they made something completely unique. They did revolutionize metal in a big way. I'm just kind of debating whether if they're an S tier or an A tier. These guys are modern legends, and their legacy is untouchable, but how much did they actually really change for metal? That's what I want to know. Massively popular, massively influential. Let's see who else is up on the list. This is a really tough list to take on. I don't know why I did it. So, because you're a Halloween Kill Switch creator. Okay. Yeah. These guys are massive. Are they as legendary as Slipknot? Are they as massive as some of those other bands are? I don't think so. I think they're on their way to S tier. I hate doing this because I'm not really satisfied with the ranking I'm giving them, because these guys do float between S and A. This is tough. I want to put them in S because of the cultural significance and their impact on metal. But I also wonder, again, it's the thing. Were they really revolutionary? Did they create something? Did they pioneer something? I don't think they did. And I don't know if their influence is on the metal music community. I don't know how many they have influenced. I feel like those numbers are a little lower than some of these bands up here. So for that, I'm going to give them an A++. I would say they fit really well right within this tier of musicians. I feel like that's fair. I gotta figure out what this says. Oh, Troldhagen. That sounds German. Sounds German AF. But I don't know anything about them, so they're going directly into no context. Okay, Teresa's. I think I'm saying that right. When it comes to extreme folk metal, this is yet again another Finnish metal band. And I feel like these guys are probably the most influential and the most significant of the folk metal genre. I think pretty much all those other bands that are in the S tier or even in the A tier all kind of took example and followed the path that they laid down. These guys are massively significant, especially in Finland, but they're also extremely relevant here in the United States. I feel like they are massively significant, and they are one of the most revolutionary bands of the folk metal genre, so I cannot give them any less than an S. This is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but when it comes to significance in heavy metal, impact they had on music, there is hardly a band that did more for metal than Twisted Sister. Yeah, I named it Twisted Sister. You can laugh at this decision all you want, but you cannot deny the impact that especially Dee Snider had on music. Their band may not have made it to Metallica levels or even moderately mainstream levels. Are they significant today? Not really. They're not even active today. But that being said, despite, the generally negative opinions and feelings about this band, there was a time when the government was trying to crack down on heavy metal music and try to enforce a greater censorship and lessen the availability of metal music in America. I think Tipper Gore is the lady that actually started the strike. She's the wife of Al Gore. And it was something like Parents Resources Against Heavy Metal, something like that. I think it's PRMC is what it's called. And she was really trying to crack down on the distribution, the release, and the censorship of heavy metal music. She did have a good bit of pull with the American people because, of course, metal is outcast. We are not, we are kind of like a shunned subculture, especially during that time. And even sometimes now, people look at metal people differently. But that being said, Dee Snider was one of the most, one of the first and foremost advocates of the music. He fought the PRMC, and I feel like he was very successful. There were other bands that followed in his footsteps, and ultimately they could not stop the strength of heavy metal music. So if you want to further appreciate why the bands you listen to today are as available as they are, it's because of what Dee Snider did in the 80s. He went to the bat and believed in metal so much that he felt it worthy of, going in there, televised court sessions, and just laying it on the line what it really was and what it's really about. And I feel like there's no bigger champion of heavy metal music than Dee Snider. We have a lot to thank him for. Twisted Sister was the band at the time that was going up, to the bat at this. He's a very iconic figure. This band has a big place in heavy metal music. So they kept metal alive in a very big way. And I feel like that's gotten overlooked and or forgotten about in this current day. And I feel like people need to pay more respect whether you like or listen to Twisted Sister or not. These guys are a big reason why music is as available as it is. Now, the censorship thing did pass, but you can still buy unedited versions of CDs and whatnot online. But, the fact that we still have metal music in stores today, as wide as it is largely because of him. Twisted Sister did do a lot, whether, you want to believe it or not. All right. So the next band on the list is Typo Negative, gothic metal, and they're probably the most prolific, sludgy gothic metal to date. These guys are iconic, legendary, and massively influential. Peter Steele is a legend amongst, a lot of musicians in the metal category. Everybody looks up to this band, their contributions, and how they changed music. There was no one quite like, or even sounded anywhere near, Typo Negative. Alright, so next one is Tyr, a Icelandic Norwegian folk metal band. They're probably one of the most popular bands from that area. That being said, their significance in the culture and relevance in music today and availability is also quite limited. I feel like these guys are receiving their dues mostly overseas. I mean, you do hear about them in America, but their circles are really small. I don't think they got, the proper or enough support to become bigger and more influential. So that being said, and with their body of work, I feel like they're the unsung heroes of folk music. They're going to the D tier. Alright, so the next band is a newer band. I like them a lot. They're becoming very popular. This is a Canadian power metal band, female-fronted power metal band called Unleash the Archers. They've got some fairly popular music videos and some popular releases. These guys are starting to build their legacy. They've been around for a little bit. They're still a little underground, but they're becoming more significant. They're starting to play some bigger tours and festivals. These guys are a band on the rise. Are they legendary? Are they super influential yet? No. But I feel like they're on their way there. So I feel like they're between a D and a C. I think they're doing about the same as Municipal Waste. They're doing good overall. They're becoming more known. They're still developing their body of work and their legacy. I feel like in time, these guys are going to be a lot higher up on the list. They are a very respected band. They're doing some good things. Solid D tier for right now. Okay, unpopular opinion time here. This is Vader. This is an old school Polish extreme metal band, death metal band, and apparently in the modern day they also are including hip hop and R&B influences, crossover type stuff. These guys are probably one of the most influential bands overseas. However, their reach and consistency is fairly limited. I feel like if there hadn't have been Vader, there wouldn't have been Behemoth. I feel like Behemoth took the path that was forged by old school Vader and made it into something entirely, different and revolutionary. I don't think these guys ever really got their due. Even overseas, their circles are really small. Their body of work is fairly struggling with availability and accessibility. It's really hard to find stuff about this band, whether if it's musical or, just general history. And for that reason alone, I feel like their contributions, even though they're noted and respected, I don't feel like they got really any attention. And in the death metal movement, regardless of where you're coming from, these guys do float at the bottom. Do I think it's fair? Not necessarily. But did it happen? Yes. F tier. A painful F tier. I can't read that logo. What is that? Vector. Okay. I don't know anything about these guys, but hopefully you will. So that goes straight into no context. All right, Venom. These guys are going straight to an S. They're unavoidable. You talk about the first band to coin the term black metal. They're they're actually part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement, but they were so extreme and so different. They kind of did go under the radar, but they became legends for what they created. The term black metal was coined by Venom, and largely these guys are considered the very first black metal band. I think these guys do predate Bathory. And I feel like a lot of people, especially today, are continually rediscovering their material. They're largely significant. They have a massive following and cultural significance. Even though relevance today is a lot less than it was, these guys founded something that was completely different than anyone else was doing. And because of that, black metal was born. So because of their massive cultural significance, these guys deserve an S tier rating. You really can't give them anything less because they contributed to the world a brand new genre of music. And when you look at it today, they're still incredibly influential. People are going back to those early records even now and discovering what created the revolution. And young people are learning about this. Their legacy exceeds themselves. They're absolute class when it comes to heavy metal. You can't deny it. Venom is an S tier. Villarta? Sounds Indian. Villarta? Well, either way you look at it, I don't know anything about it. So that goes straight into no context. Voivod. Okay, unpopular opinion time here. These guys are a relevant figure in heavy metal movement. This is a Canadian thrash band. You do hear about these guys, at times, and they do hold a fair share of significance culturally. They did influence a lot of ambient and or prog elements into thrash that really no one else was doing. But the problem with Voivod, honestly, the problem with Voivod is a massive case of local significance. Now, are they known in America? Yes. But their American tours are small and kind of spread out. And in Canada, especially the French-Canadian areas like Quebec and Montreal, these guys are absolute legends. They're like the Canadian Metallica. They have a good following overseas. These guys are icons. They were completely different than anything else at the time. They were extremely, I feel like they led thrash into a completely different direction. I feel like they might have been ahead of their time. And sometimes the more experimental you are, the less successful you are. These guys really did change the recipe, but they remain a very small underground band. They didn't get a lot of support, and still they're kind of underground. I feel like today they're a little more significant than they were. But that being said, availability, accessibility, local significance, these guys are the underdogs. They are an underrated experimental thrash band. I feel like they should have gotten a bigger due, but they never did. Even now, they're still, trying to get that support to become the band they want to be. You got to respect them for their contributions, but they are massively underloved. All right, Warbringer. New wave of American thrash and extreme metal. These guys are highly respected. I believe they've been around since about 2004. And they've combined elements of traditional thrash metal with new wave of speed metal and including elements of death metal. They're kind of extreme for thrash. They're highly popular. They're highly successful. That being said, they're just a consistent band that puts out consistently good music, according to fans and critics alike. Nothing special overall. So because of that, they get a D tier rating. Not excessively or extremely mainstream, not completely underground, not really a revolutionary band, but they are a respected and consistent band. All right, the next one is Warrants. And honestly, these guys really aren't metal. They came towards the end of the glam movement. They were completely different. I don't feel like their contributions were extremely well noted. And of course, the inconsistency and the tragedy in their lineup. These guys were hair metal, but I feel like when it comes to hair metal, as much as I hate to do this, these guys were at the bottom. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with timing coming in right at the end of the 80s. They were very different. I like them. I don't like everything they did, but I feel like they were the heavier of, at times, of the glam movement, especially when you listen to songs like Uncle Tom's Cabin. I mean, God knows that's heavy. But I don't feel like they made a lasting impact, and they certainly don't have a lasting significance. Unfortunately, as talented as this band is, the death of Janie Lang, their original singer, was a massive blow. But even then, they kind of dwindled into what was largely considered the has-been territory of musicians. I do like them and I respect them immensely, but they are an F. They probably contributed some of the least when it comes to glam metal, but I feel like they were entirely different, and if they had more time, they would have had a bigger impact. Whoo-wee. All right. While She Sleeps. This is absolutely no context for me. I don't even know about them. Never heard of them until this list. White Lion. These guys are not metal. They were one of those hard rock bands that were kind of in between phases, so people kind of yoked them together with hair metal and glam, but these were just a really good hard rock band. The player, Vito Bratta, was really like a second Eddie Van Halen in terms of tones and, his guitar technique. it was a real blow to the community whenever he quit music because of the grunge scene and how unhappy he was about the change of tides. This guy is still widely remembered and revered in the hard rock community and in the metal community. But I feel like overall these guys were not given enough time, because I think their first record came out in like 88 or 89, kind of like a Warrant situation. But I don't feel like they were actually metal. They're more like a hard rock band. And I think that's kind of how the band sees themselves too, just looking at it. I just wish they had more time. And an influential character in the modern metal movement, there is none greater than Whitechapel. Whitechapel, Suicide Silence, As I Lay Dying. These guys were absolute visionaries and pioneered a brand new movement. Whitechapel, along with Suicide Silence, has influenced countless bands in the modern day. They've revolutionized metal, and they're one of the leading names and leading figures in metal today. Globally significant, widely accessible and available. These guys just never lost importance and influence. And for that, they get an S tier rating. Inspect. This is Wine from Tears. That is absolutely no context. I've never heard of them before today. This is Witchfinder General, and honestly, I'm surprised this band is on the list because they are a very under-the-radar, under-loved, new wave of British heavy metal band. Again, these guys got absolutely zero love and almost no influence. They're kind of like, I feel like there's another one on here from that movement. Maybe not. This is where Diamond Head would have been if Metallica hadn't provided them pretty much a secondary career. These guys never made a ripple. They were massively overshadowed by the other titans of the movement. Unfortunately, if you know about them, you're an extremely hardcore fan of metal and you've done your research, and most people don't know or don't hear about this band. Those that do know about them do speak well of them, but outside of that, their circles are microscopic. They never really got a chance to make an impact, which is why they're an F. Alright guys and girls, that's it for me today. Honestly, this was the most challenging Tiermaker video to date. You would figure this list would be getting a lot easier as we keep eliminating or categorizing other bands, but this is getting more and more difficult. This was a real nail-biter today. Whoever created this list on Tiermaker is an absolute madman. They did their homework. They really know who to put in here. So, again, there's going to be a part 4, you know it. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. It does a lot for me. And always, guys, if you have any kind of information on the bands that are falling into the no context category, please let me know in the comments. I would like to eventually place these guys somewhere on the map according to facts. Again, guys, thank you for your comments so far. I've been loving reading them. Please keep those coming as well, too. Also, the links to the first 2 videos will be in the description, and at the time of the release of this video, I'll be creating a playlist solely for the Tiermaker Saga, as I'm calling it. So that way, you don't miss any, and if you didn't catch it when it came out, you can find it on the playlist. Until next time, this is your boy Mark. Have a great week.